Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us from different locations for our Hacking HR September theme, Building a Culture of Innovation. What we will be discussing today is unleashing the creative power of the people to deliver value for the organization. We have a global panel with us, while Jessa is going to be introducing our panels one by one on the screen. It'll be good if everyone can start sharing from where they are joining today. And there's our lovely panel. Hello, everybody.
Everybody.
Hi. Hey, everybody.
Hi. A quick
Good
round of
morning.
introduction. Maybe we can start with Monique and we can go in sequence.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am from Malaysia. Right now, it's about 10 p.m. I am a seasoned HR practitioner with more than 2 decades of experience in various industries, and I'm happy to be part of this esteemed panel.
Awesome. Sondri.
Yeah, hi, Monique, Cyprian, Wayne, Marianne, Natasha, and everybody joining in. Near neighbor there, Monique with you, 10 p.m. in Hong Kong time, joining in from the Fragrant Harbor. I'm an organizational consultant, and I say I have the big, hairy, audacious goal of helping leaders and teams drive business outcomes through the power of storytelling. And I'm looking forward to this conversation with everyone.
Awesome. Cyprian.
Oh, love that. I haven't prepared such a snazzy intro for it, but so happy to be part of the panel. So I'm Cyprian, or Chip is easy and simple for people to remember and pronounce. I'm calling from London, UK, originally from Romania. So it's about 3 p.m. my time as we're live on this session. Similarly to some of my colleagues that have been introduced, I bring about of 2 decades of being in different roles in HR and organizational transformation roles. Currently, I'm heading off the Global People Experience and HR Transformation Division for Entain Group, which is a global player for about 30,000 employees in 38 different markets that we operate in. So really happy to be part of the conversation and talk more about some of the elements of bringing to life innovation, people experience, and what we can do better for our organizations.
Awesome. Wayne.
Good morning, good evening, good every day, everybody. Nice to see everybody. My name is Wayne Tarkin. I am on the faculty of the University of Pennsylvania. I teach several courses on developing the agile leader in the organization. We've also taken that consulting practice, work with some large companies throughout the world. We believe that agile ways of working is a way to transform organizations. We've seen phenomenal results. Especially in an uncertain environment where lots of change, being able to adapt and respond to challenges is going to be a key differentiator in organization. So I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. And Marianne.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be on this panel this morning. Excited to be here talk about this topic. I'm joining you today from Wilmington, North Carolina. I am a former Jersey girl, however, grew up there, still in my blood. Yeah, former. Yep. Now I'm a North Carolinian. But anyway, I spent my career, kind of an eclectic career on the business side, and finished my corporate career as a role in human resources, chief human resource officer, also on faculty at NYU. And my burning platform for the last about decade or so has been the future of HR, around the future of work, and lining those two things up. My wheelhouse has always been aligning talent and strategy. I did that in the corporate world and then used that as the basis for launching my business, C3 Talent Strategies, back in 2018. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now. We run Leadership Incubator, which is developing future-ready leaders in a post-pandemic world. do some executive coaching and HR strategy work. I'm delighted to be here today.
Awesome. Warm welcome once again to all the panelists. I'm curious to know, and I'm sure our audience is also curious to know right now, why is the culture of innovation important? And what do you think, in your experience, is the first step in building the culture of organization within by the leadership team? Question is open to all panelists. Anybody may take the lead.
Okay, maybe I would like to start first since I introduced myself. I think for me, is based on my experience, is number one, I think the first step is to have a clear and compelling vision of innovation that aligns with the organization goals and values and is not sitting in silo or separate from everything else. So it needs to be embedded as part of the goals and values, as well as this vision needs to be shared with everyone in the organization, so that everyone is clear, and as well as to understand as well why is the organization embracing innovation, what is it in it for them, and why everyone has to be on board with the organization to be part of this innovation journey. And I open to the rest to add on.
Yeah, following up on what Monique had said, I think there's so much change in the world, right? That organizations need to be constantly innovating just to keep up. We had COVID-1, COVID-2, now we have a new strain, things like that. There's so much going on that you really have to innovate. The companies that don't innovate typically go out of business or don't do very well. So I think that's the first step, is really critical. The thing that we work with the organization around is developing a culture of experimentation. In HR, we've always brought up to do things perfectly the first time, right? We wanted to make sure we didn't leave anybody out, discriminate, whatever. But perfection is not possible. You learn more by doing than planning. And so our philosophy is developing an experimentation mindset, allowing people not to be perfect, learning from mistakes as well as successes to power through. So that's the way I would look at it.
Progress over perfection, right, Wayne?
Yep.
Yep,
Exactly.
That's how you do it. Yeah, and what I would add to your question, Natasha, is I think technology will not permit us to overlook innovation. And look what's happening with generative AI is kind of rocking
Yeah.
the world today.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to innovate around that, right? There's a whole big push. You see it coming out from IBM, from Mercer, from all the big consulting companies on how do you use generative AI to drive your business, right? It's hitting HR all over the world. So we have to be able to innovate, I think as Monique said and Wayne said, or you won't make it. You'll be the companies left behind.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really fair point. I think we're past that incursion point of we can keep up with technology. So from the last 2 years, technology is changing so rapidly that no organization can actually keep up with the change, the speed of progress and everything else. I think innovation plays a big part in how organizations can actually become a bit more sustainable to that level of future. We're past the point we will never catch up with technology progress at this moment in time. But what we can do is to actually expedite our journey as organization in that space. So we've mentioned sort of a compounding question in there, sort of the importance of it and then how we change it. And like this significant and rich business cases of why innovation actually drives sustainability for organizations. So how it's making sure that your business case is strong enough to last not just for a year, but actually for compounding years, year after year. The demand in the market has changed as well. We used to have one new technology launched every year. Now we're expecting updates every quarter. Now we're expecting new releases of technology and features every month, if possible, every week. As we're opening technology every single day, we want to see new things, improved things, and the speed, that agility of progress for other organizations. If organizations can't keep with that, then we're losing competitive advantage. So we're exiting and shrinking some of our proportion of how we support the market. There's
Yeah.
also that element of change in expectation, both as a customer and as an employee. So if you're looking both from customer experience and employee experience, the change in what we expect for organizations has dramatically changed. It's expedited into, we want to have the breakfast at work, but also the best technology ever. We want to work from anywhere, but still have job security as much as we can balance some of those elements. We want to travel the world, but still connect with our peers in the most meaningful way as possible. So all of that requires us to think on our feet, requires us to change ways of working, requires us to throw out the window some of those rules that we've run some organizations for the past 100 years, and start thinking of what's the future of work in some
Right.
of these scenarios.
That's what scares me the most with some of these mandated return to office strategies. It's like you're trying to go back to a place that doesn't exist anymore, right? And that, to me, is the most dangerous place we could be in trying to pull ourselves back to a world that doesn't exist anymore.
Yes.
Just,
And the
just
reason for it is comfort, is not innovation.
Correct. Yes. It's the status quo.
yeah. I think it's also what leaders actually asking, and this is something that I get asked in my work, is how do we get our people to innovate more? As if the direction is from that side only. It's not the people really stopping the innovation. And while we see a lot of continuous improvements, for the really bolder innovations to come, which leads to greater profitability, deeper competitive advantage, and all that, that's what leaders really want to see more of. And sometimes they're grappling and wondering, where is that happening, without realizing that some of the status has to be set by them. And I remember that when Steve Sadoff took over Clairol in 91, way back, but the company had just been shell shocked by a significant decline in sales volume. And he went to a really creative person who did all the packaging and the creative development and all, and said, why aren't we doing anything creative here? And that guy just opened the drawers from his desk and showed all his wonderful work, all the formulation, everything lying there, because people were just putting their head down in that culture and working. So, one of the things that Steve took away from that, was his role as a leader to create that environment, to allow for that innovation, for that creativity, make it okay to fail and all that. So, sometimes, looking at innovation from the leader says, why aren't we innovating? Why aren't we doing these great things? But really, are you creating the environment, the atmosphere, the psychological safety around it? And I'm sure we'll hear a bit more of those as we go ahead in the conversation.
Yeah, it's like Wayne referred to just a few minutes ago. You have to learn how to experiment. But in doing so, you have to learn how to take risk. You have to allow people to fail, learn from your mistakes, and move on, right? That's how we get better, is incremental progress over time. And we try, look at what happened when March of 2020, when the world shut down. More than half of the world had no idea what to do. They'd never worked in a virtual setting before. They'd never been in a remote setting before, and they had to figure it out. And guess what? We made it work, right? So we have to be able to keep that mindset and bring it forward, even though we may be moving past a pandemic at some point. Who knows what the world will throw at us next? We need to be ready for whatever that is, and having the right mindsets and the right skill sets as leaders will help us get there.
I'm going to be the cynical in that to say that most organizations made it work. Some of them just collapsed and went under.
Well, it
Some
wasn't perfect.
organizations
It was,
will never work, right? Like
Yeah.
healthcare is not going to be remote.
And it's that balance of, are we having like a stable model of running the business with a formulated environment that we've created ages ago that was sticking to based on sort of the heritage of the brand? Are we the innovative, changing, agile startup type of environment, despite of how many thousands of people we might be hiring? So allowing innovation to almost like bypass our ethos and be part of who we are as an organization? Or are we that element in the middle of what Wayne quite easily described as experimentation, where you're having the problem, you're talking about what are the type of assumptions that we want to test, what are the type of things that we want to bring in the lab to test, to play with, to experiment, where failing is learning. So there's no
Yes.
point of failing being punished. It's
Yep.
literally designed as an experiment in a laboratory where you're going in with the purpose of failing. So the purpose of experimentation is not to win, is to fail often for
How
and
fast.
every single day to make sure that you're actually learning and progressing as part of that.
And
Some really interesting points that have been emerging from this conversation. I think this calls to the second question for the panel, which is a follow-up from what emerged from this first part of the discussion. Right now, if you look at the trends that are emerging from different surveys, organizations are still overwhelmed with what kind of work models, which was briefly touched by the panels as well, will work ideally for the organization. Most of them are now pushing people back into the workspace, going the old ways. There are some who have understood the importance of remote and hybrid, and they are managing their expectations from that perspective. I also heard from the panel about agility, experimentation, failing often, creating an environment of continuous improvement. While all that sounds very exciting, I think what our audience would love to know is what is it that they can start doing differently first to address what's happening right now in real life in the organizations, with as basic as what should be the right work model for them to move forward. Again, question is open to all.
Yeah. I think you're not going to get one answer from any of us or one answer from.
That's the whole idea, Saundari.
There is no one answer.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, we have a really great locational diversity here in the panel itself. And from our audience, as I can see, you know, people coming from each of our realities is going to be very different. And this, you know, I think about, I used to work with Unilever many moons back, and Unilever started all this flexi work and all long before. And a lot of organizations did that long before. I mean, IT tech always operated as work from client or work away from office, kind of, you know, when they were working on projects. So Unilever, when they started this flexi hour, everybody who was sitting in London, UK, were very happy because they didn't have to do the long commutes to get into work. But they just took it and applied the same thing at that time and offered it to Japan, where people didn't have enough. They said, no, we are not going to put all this equipment and connectivity stuff at that time in our small place. That's not going to work. Then they took the same thing and tried copy pasting in Pakistan. And a lot of women employees just threw their hands up and said, no way, my in-laws are going to expect me to make coffee and tea round the clock, and I'm not going to be able to work. I need an office to go to. And I think that is really that segment of one targeting that organizations are needing to do. I was thinking back to my own work life when I was working with ANZ, and I had a small kid. I was in busy Bombay, India at that time, what is called Bombay, which is Mumbai now. And I would have given my arm and a leg to be able to work from home. You know, if I could keep an eye on my kid and not have to worry about what kind of help I could get and things like that. So I think really giving that flexibility, and I've seen a lot of US organizations do that, literally give a wallet of benefits to people to say, this is the wallets which are available. Please pick and choose and take what you want, but come into the organization. If you want to come outside, we'll create the mechanism so you can thrive in the best way possible and bring your best self and be innovative, be creative. I think once we sort all that, everything else will fall in place.
Yeah, I think I'll try to stay away from hybrid ways of working and technology, because they feel like two different buckets that could easily absorb most of our conversation. And going back to what you were saying earlier about sort of how do you create a culture of innovation in your organization, and we've already started, like that the way we've initiated our conversation was exactly around stuff like that, of clear vision and purpose. of what is the type of organization that we want to be in. How does that translate into our organizational culture? How does that translate into our values? And then we've also mentioned, as we were having the conversation, about some of those elements of psychological safety. Of have we been punishing innovation in the past? Have we created the environment where we're allowing people to put their ideas forward? Are those ideas actually being fostered in the environment that we're creating? We've also touched on leadership support and commitment. So if we have leaders actually talking openly about the type of innovation that we're fostering in the direction of travel and how all of these different ideas could, I don't know, be put to the challenge or create a safe environment for us to test new ideas. All of those are elements, are like 3-4 elements that actually allow you to understand some of those elements. Now, if you're in HR or in any type of people-related function, I would say take a step back from all of those things and do the diagnosis of what is stopping you today from understanding why innovation is not happening. Is it organizational culture? Is it structure? Is it social norms? Like all of those different elements are actually barriers for you in stopping. Is it the way the organization and the narrative of we've always done it this way? Is it empowerment and autonomy? Is it people being tied into specific roles that they don't feel that they can step out of that to actually think outside of the box? So like all of these things could be the holistic or could be quite segmented into your organization of barriers that you'd need to remove.
I think the work design model of the future or the present is really networks.
Mm.
You know, we're moving away from hierarchical, bureaucratic. In many companies, not all, many are still in there, but I think most companies that I'm working with see the need to focus more on networks.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it doesn't really matter your location, right? If you have a strong network as an employee, and all of us in the call probably have strong networks, we can find out information and we can see what's going on just by a couple calls. And so information is easy to us, we can find it. But if you're in a person who's even in the office but has a limited network, you're struggling to figure out, well, is this tribal knowledge? Is this real? Who do I go? Who do I talk to? I'm having a challenge with this. Who can give me some support? Things like that. So it's still not embedded in most organizations, but and again, it's not really a part of anybody's performance management system or competency assessments. But I think in the future, it's going to have to be. How can we help people build bigger networks that are more effective so that I don't have to wait for things? I can know who to talk to whenever I need something right away, kind of a just-in-time philosophy.
You're spot on, Wayne. And Rob Cross has done a tremendous amount of work around networks. And we've used organizational network analysis as a tool in talent management. Actually, is becoming a different way to identify your top talent because they're not typically the people on your org structure. It's somebody further down or further out in the organization that everybody goes to because they're a tremendous resource to help solve problems or innovate on new ideas. That's critically important. I think in answer to the what can you do now, Sip had perfect advice there, really sage advice around taking the pause, doing some analysis, picking your spots. Oftentimes I've seen HR leaders who struggle because they're just trying to do too much at once. Culture of innovation is a big bucket and has many, many dimensions to it. So to take it and evaluate it and see where you are and find a spot that you can make a meaningful impact and get some credibility around it, then you can start to get some traction around your ideas and move forward to other spaces. But I think Monique made a really great point when she started us off on this panel around aligning to your organization's North Star. What is the organizational strategy? How does innovation support the business? How does it help us become a winning organization? Everybody wants to be part of that. When organizations are winning, everybody's happy, right? Your customers are happy, your employees are happy, you're getting good results. You want to make sure you're lining up those two things and building the culture and the talent that you need to actually deliver on that. That's the most effective way I think we can really get after this. And to Sundari's point, there is no one answer, right? You know, when we go into organizations to do this work, ironically, we're almost in the same place we were when COVID hit. Nobody had a playbook. Nobody had, oh, here's the recipe. Here's what you just sit down and do this and you'll be okay. It doesn't work like that. You have to really evaluate each organization, each workforce, all the different strategies. Where you are on that journey also matters. So you really need to take that pause and figure out where you are, center yourself, and then take small steps toward the big hill.
And I would add that you really just have to get started.
Yeah.
Pick an idea and go with it. I see many organizations and leaders, they want to make it perfect. So they plan and they plan and they plan. And next thing you know, the first step, they get smacked in the head, doesn't work anymore. So you learn more by doing than by planning. So I would say pick something, try it, doesn't work out, tweak it, and then keep going forward.
Yeah. The other spot where we've seen kind of a great place of discovery around just that, Wayne, is helping organizations do a say-do analysis, right? Looking at what they say they support and then finding the evidence on how it actually shows up. And so they think they're providing a psychologically safe environment, but they're not having the right conversations. They're not providing the opportunity for employees to be controversial about something that's going on so that you can get the tough issues on the table. So when you do that analysis around what they say and what they do, and do those two things line up or not, we get a lot of discovery on things that they need to either start doing or stop doing because it's getting in their way.
Monique, you have some points.
Yeah, so I think for us as HR leaders, I don't think we need to wait until the organization do something for us to act on it. I think in our own space, whether it's HR, whatever functions you're at, as a leader, we should encourage that for our team and our team members as well, to value individual. Some of us would have team members who probably have strength in many areas. And obviously, for us as a leader to recognize their strength and also to provide opportunities for them to grow, right? They may be interested in some projects they want to really, kind of contribute. And as a leader, we should recognize that and allow them the autonomy, to have that autonomy to do that, and also to have a supportive and inclusive work environment. I think it's for us to wait for things to happen. As a HR leader, we should act on it, and we should be the example for the organization and say, even though we are HR, we can innovate as well. So I think it's always good, like you mentioned as well, take a stop of what we are doing, right? And what are some of the opportunities and gaps that we have, and give that opportunity for the team to kind of embrace innovation by giving them ideas and throwing it to them. And you'd be surprised what the team can do for us.
I want to
I'm
link
going to be
the
slightly controversial there and say that we don't necessarily have to lead by example. Like if we don't foster that space of innovation, people will find ways of being innovative outside work. They'll go into arts and craft, they'll start their own podcasts, they'll do whatever else outside of the organization that allows them to experiment and to express themselves. And coming from sort of HR operations background, there's significant amount of risk. So like even our vision is a bit blocked of, we're seeing risks and we're seeing some of the challenges before we even see the sort of blue sky type of horizon. So in some regards, I think like we just need to step out of the way and actually allow people to just fly off with some of those ideas of innovation.
Yeah, I think just to add on exactly that, right? Not be in the way. So therefore, as a HR leader, we should give that opportunity for people to, look at certain things and kind of embrace some of the gaps. We as leaders, we do not have the answer, and that's a fact, right? We don't know, and we don't, we can find out. We don't know everything, so we shouldn't be the roadblock. And then obviously, as well as you mentioned HR ops as well, I'm not saying that we change, but there are ways to do it better. If that is something that the team can suggest and propose, as a leader, we should listen. And this is the key to managing a great team and to be a great leader.
Sandri?
Yeah. No, just linking beautiful points. I'm making a lot of notes as well, really great ideas, and I think we'll take time to mull over it. part of the ideation process is also really asking better questions,
Yes.
and listening actively as leaders, HR, ops, whatever kind of role that you play in the organization. Are you really listening? Are you asking the better questions? And then are you writing down? And one of the research that Frances Frey, who works with the Harvard Business School, in a book Unleashed, she talks about it, saying, make a list of all the indignities that are going on in the organization and look at how actively you can listen and convert that to dignities, things that will really help people flourish and thrive in the organization. And to that extent, I think asking some of those better questions to either provoke ideas, I mean, organizational resources will be scarce. There will be enough people who are under a sleeping gas kind of a mode and say, I don't want to change, I'm this way. You'll have all range of people working with the organization. How do you really ask and drive that change for them? So one of the examples that's always given is Amazon talks about not looking at how can we make a process 10 times faster in 90 days, which is just the incremental part of innovation, but are instead looking at the transformational innovation by asking how can we remove the checkout process itself totally in 2 years. And that's how they got all the buy now and one click and dash and all those buttons going. So really creating those processes where you can ask these different kind of questions to drive innovation. So I see it as going with that curiosity and asking those questions to push people, push your teams to really get thinking on that. And
And one of those great questions often is, what do we need to stop doing so we can get more capacity and oxygen to do the things we really should be doing? We've got all of these activities that go on in organizations that, frankly, if we took a real brutally honest look at, do we need to do those? I'm not so sure. That's one of the places that you can start and just create some oxygen to get room for other things to do. But I would offer the other side of this coin, which is just unorganized innovation that's not tracked, that's not acknowledged, that's not acted on, will actually work against you. So in organizations where employees are bringing forward ideas and they're putting things on the table and nothing ever happens, is an easy way to kill it very quickly. And we even see it in engagement surveys where we ask and do some corollary data between their intent to stay and will they take action on these items. And the people who were skeptical that leadership would actually do anything with what they heard were correlated to the people who said, I'm not sticking around.
Which is that ideas in the drawer kind of thing, Marian, unheard, unrecognized. And Chip, to your point, I've seen this happen here in Hong Kong with people going outside because they're so strapped with the structure of what they need to do, how they need to show up at work, all the creativity. We found out about this one guy in an office in an investment bank who was actually running a local language podcast on the side, and nobody knew that version of him. So really, are we also allowing people to bring all their avatars of themselves to work so they can really turn up, connect the dots with all those? I think some of us who've had different trajectories are able to really bring all those ideas together when we go into work. And I think, very valid point on that.
Yeah.
How are we really fostering that?
And I don't think we can take that to that ridiculous end state where we're expecting absolutely everyone to fulfill their full potential at work. I think that's we should not even expect that, especially what Wayne mentioned about sort of the future of work being about networks and not necessarily being sort of stuck into an organization and being this person that works for multiple different organizations and provides services and has that level of fluidity. But we can do some of these elements where we bring innovation that is targeted around what do we want to be as a business? And there's this great example from Atlassian, which sort of hires mountains of developers and techies. And what they say is that because they know that everyone has sort of agile portfolios that they are working on, they do work around the type of products that they need to deliver. To take them outside of that, they take them on a 2-week conference away from their desks, where they put them into teams that never worked together ever before. They give them challenges and they come with innovative products. So they say, what would make a great product for internal or external use? What are some of those ideas that we haven't thought about yet? Can you do a prototype by the end of these 2 weeks? How would this team be coordinated to be able to run that? Is that a product that we can throw our money as a business to be able to start funding and supporting, both internal and external, that will make people's lives better? And they come up with a lot of examples that a lot of them get funded by the business, but a lot of them also get thrown outside to say, this is a great example that could be funded by a different organization and could run for them. It might not be fitted for us, but this is an amazing product for someone else to develop. And sort of that innovation just sparks that element of building networks, building alignment with the business, like creating a ring-fenced amount of time where people don't have to think about work. They are literally blue sky scenarios of anything else that we would want to make the world better.
So just
So,
one analogy. Can I just want to say one thing?
Sure, Wayne.
I believe that we all have hidden assets that, if we brought to the surface, would increase productivity engagement significantly. There's a book called Strategic Doing. I recommend everybody read it. We use it as part of our course and as well as our consulting practice. We have those hidden assets below. It's like an iceberg, right? When you see an iceberg, only a small portion of it is above the water. The vast majority is below the water. You can't see it. We look at talent the same way. Everybody that we've worked with reveals that they have some hidden talents that they don't use at work, but could. As an example, we see musicians, we see graphic artists, we see painters, and we've combined them into skills that the organization didn't have, but now has. So I would challenge leaders, people on the call, look at the assets that, not just the above the surface assets, but look below the surface. There are many assets that your employees have that you're not even aware of. And just by getting to know them better, what do you do in your free time? What are some of your hobbies? And then try to integrate them in a way that helps your business. And so, we've seen people come up with epiphanies. They fell in love again with work where they were disengaged before. And all of us have those hidden assets that are just kind of dying to come up and to the surface and be utilized.
Yep. And I'll tie your comment, Wayne, with something Sundari said before about asking great questions together by sharing innovation workshops I used to run when I was inside a corporate. One of the things that we always made sure of was we had people who knew absolutely nothing about what we were doing in the room. Because when you ask those great questions, to Wayne's point, they have no filters. They have no bias. They don't have any tied mental models to what should be or must be. And they come up with the most amazing ideas. We had Scott Page from University of Michigan come in and do a keynote talk on ecosystems. And he shared his research on that discovery that when you put groups together, groups of experts actually did not perform as well as groups with people who had no knowledge of what was being discussed. And they perform better because they have no biases and no filters, and they ask great questions.
Great. My question to the panel is in terms of technology aspect now. Considering that we have AI, we have blockchain, and a whole host of other new technologies, which are the center focus for the organizations and the people. How do you see organizations and leaders leveraging innovation to enable their teams to start coming up with value for the customers internally and externally?
Yeah, I can see a lot of great comments on the chat as well. And I know it's always very difficult to keep an eye on everything. I think one of the things on the tech part, and building on what Marianne and everybody else said about giving that time, so what Chip also said about giving that time to innovate. So WeTransfer, which is the Dutch file transfer company, they said that, let's not just do research and let's not just try to find out this how great is diversity on innovation and things like that, because they do boast a 50% gender split among their employees who are coming from 38 different countries. They give all of them one full Innovation Friday each month to work on a project of their choosing. And some of which, like a mobile uploader and all, have gotten incorporated into the company's suite of creative workflow tools. So, what you're doing as innovation within the organization ties in directly to how the customer will see and use the product. And that's where, really driving innovation, looking at it from not just what the customer, and as Apple always does, not just what the customer might imagine, but really blow their imagination out of proportion, go beyond their imagination and come up with some of these ideas and creative tools. I mean, sometimes I didn't even know I needed that feature kind of, thing. So really looking at incorporating some of these tools into learning, creating all those fail fasts, sharing failures within the organization. So literally learning and innovation go hand in hand. The people who have been arrogant about success were the people who said what we did yesterday was sufficient for tomorrow. And those companies don't exist today.
Yeah.
So building in some of these into and can't give these are the 10 points that leaders need to do, or organization need to do for, to build the creator. But some of these really go a long way. And I would love to hear from everybody else as well. Monique and
Yeah, I would say it's technology's enabler, but it's not the main reason, the main differentiator. It's how it's used, right? And I think we tend to focus on the wrong things. We tend to focus on output versus outcomes. Okay, activity, being busy, but what are the outcomes of the customer? What are they getting from this? In HR, we're built to do great things, and we do a benefits program, and it's got all A to Z, and then we roll it out, and nobody likes it because we built it for HR. We didn't build it for our customers. And so when I advise my clients, what value are you bringing to your customer? And that relates to outcomes. What outcomes does the customer want, and are you delivering that? Versus output, which is activity. Again, you want to be busy, and that's the issue with being in person or virtual, right? It's really about outcomes. What outcomes are you generating that satisfy the customer needs?
Yep. And from an engagement standpoint, technology can help us reach the distributed workforces we have now, people in different, 38 countries, right? People are all over the globe. We can reach them and touch them and include them and make them part of the process. And at the same time, helping them see their part in the journey. What does their role contribute to the overall outcomes that drive value for our customers, that create better employee experience for them to really do their best work, or participate in a project that really gets them jazzed and excited? We can use technology for all of those things to help us reach a better overall outcome for everyone, not just our clients.
I'll go next, and now hand over to Monique for her final thoughts. I think that there's an element of technology will challenge us to be more innovative. I think that there's significant amount of fear of what AI and advanced technology will do.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm speaking to sort of HR leaders of my generation, they tell me stories of how they've started in HR to filing CVs in a cabinet as part of their first few roles 20-something years ago. Well, I'm just asking, like, that job just no longer exists. Like, we don't even have the necessity of saving those CVs at the moment. Like, is that legal holding document? Like, let's think of what some of those applications would look like in the future, and removing some of our biases and desires. I think at the start and Monique started us quite nicely with that shared vision for the future. I think if we remove our biases of how we want that future to look like, and we steer more towards what Wayne was talking about of what's the impact of that future, we're actually creating the path for innovation. So we're not explicit about what we want that solution to look like. We're saying what I want is for people to feel like they belong in this organization from the moment that they get the first contact from us, whether that's email, a bird flying past their house, a drone telling them that they're part of Entain, or anything else. And like, we're leaving that innovation to fly. Like, you will normally get the traditional answers with, oh, we're going to send an email and we're going to tell them of how happy we are, and we can embed a video of the CEO welcoming them to the business. All of these things that other organizations are doing. And then you're going to get sort of the fringe elements of, oh, let's do this really amazing thing when we're doing a VR type of element where they scan a QR code and they feel like they are in our office for even before they joined us. It's like, oh, that's a really cool idea. What's the outcome of that? Do they feel they're more part of the organization? So it's like taking it beyond some of those. And it's sometimes the voices that don't shout the loudest that come with some of these ideas. So there's a role for leaders to actually elevate that voice, to like listen really closely of what are some of these things that are happening, and what we're hearing around our business. And technology can do wonders to help us amplify those voices, to help us store it, to help us bring it together, to create the storytelling and bring it to life.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think just to add on and just to recap and summarize everything, I think from a technology standpoint, I mean, technology, as Wayne has mentioned, obviously it's an enabler, and I totally agree with that. And it's also a catalyst as well. I think it serves both function for innovation to provide tools, resources, and opportunities to create new things, such as products, services, and solutions as well. I think it's inevitable. Organizations, functions need to embrace technology, and that's a given, right? Particularly now we have got so much of AI, AR technology to assist us, and I think closer to us in healthcare, there is also what we call the telemedicine as well, and digital healthcare technologies that have transformed the healthcare industry. If you look at healthcare today or before, it has been a very traditional conservative industry, and I think today it has evolved to enable remote consultations, personalized treatment plans, and more data-driven healthcare innovations. And I think that comes with working hand in hand for technology, and also to embrace innovation in the organization, to have all these solutions that assist companies and organizations today.
Yep, great point.
No, great. And I think we can't do away with the technology piece. So I want to hang on to it in that sense. I mean, one of the organizations in Copenhagen, a design lab called Space 10, they talked about, how they are going about looking at AI contributing, using large language models and AI contributing to prototypes. So they wanted to create a prototype for something called a couch in an envelope. So a design firm working on it, and they gave it prompts saying it needs to be lightweight, it needs to be recyclable, it needs to be easy to move, and all that. And it worked like this high performing junior art director, which means it had a lot of power, it had a lot of energy, and it didn't get tired. It had a lot of ambition. But once it generated those thousands of ideas, somebody came in and said, okay, thank you for those 5,000 additional generations and options. We need to slow down. So there's always that human touch that comes in while technology is evolving. I think really using the human touch to rope in all that energy, the tech energy, the AI energy, and everything else, and keeping innovation in the direction that it needs to go, bringing empathy into the design, I mean, we talk about human-centered design a lot, and a lot of examples we could go on about it, but really keeping that human in the center, using these tools and technologies to enable them, to make them really go out and do the thing that they can best do. And really then looking at creating that Ajay Banga, who's now the World Bank head, and he said that, all these psychological safety doesn't come because you wave a magic wand. It comes through that hard work that people and leaders and teams do. It
That's
comes through sharing, and it comes through cross-fertilization of people and ideas. Today's conversation, getting this whole broad range of how each of us are using some of these tools to drive innovation, to drive and build that culture in the organization. This is the kind of cross fertilization that's really required. And to that end, really thanks to Enrique for creating some of these platforms and conversation boards.
Yeah, it's another mindset leaders need to have, right? Technology has become embedded in every facet of life, work, home, everywhere we go. It's hard to find anything that's not touched by technology these days. So we have to have a positive outlook about finding ways to use it constructively that helps us all get better results.
And I think that technology it's made us more productive. I'm a little older than most. I remember when we first got voicemail, and then we used faxes, and I was in the it was Alexander Graham Bell when he invented the telephone, so it really, I'm just kidding. It really impacted our productivity. Now, some people lost their jobs, which is inevitable, just like, blacksmith and other jobs aren't as popular as they were. But I think it increased our productivity. And so you look at the internet when that came before that, right? Things were totally different. So it improves the flow and makes us more productive, and it requires different skill sets. So, I always embrace technology because it helps me get better. There is a downside that, it may help me get unemployed. But, being a growth oriented person, I always look to grow and develop. And so for me, that was a challenge I was willing to accept.
Yeah. And to add to that point, I think we've also steered technology to amplify our skills.
Yes.
So if we're staying unemployed and we're getting unemployed based on technology replacing part of our work, we're also using significant amounts of technology to actually upskill ourselves in things that we've never done before. So like AI programming, that was not an actual job a few years back, is now in high demand. But we're actually using AI to teach AI programmers on how to program AI, which sounds ridiculous, but it is sort of the future of where we're heading.
The next wave. Yeah. There's a famous Henry Ford quote that I've always liked about, change and moving forward. And it goes like, if I listened to all my customers, we'd still be riding horses and not driving cars, right? So we have to embrace it. Change is here. It's not going away. Technology is going to accelerate it. And we have to really get ready to just keep moving forward. And to Sip's point, use it in a positive mindset. Think about how it can help us amplify what's good, help you stop doing all the things that are frustrating and mundane, and get out of the way.
Yeah. And like I've been laid off from jobs before. I think in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened, of actually pushing me into saying, actually, I love technology. I love the future of work. What's next? What's that next big challenge that is ready for me?
Was it Kierkegaard who said life can only be, understood backward, but live forward? I'm probably paraphrasing it. And that's what I mean. We found a lot of these. There was this designation which was created during COVID time called CZO. It's not the CEO, it's not the CEO, it's not the CFO. There was a CZO, which was a Chief Zoom Officer. We didn't know that such a role was even required, right? To that extent, I think it's not AI which will replace people, but people who know to harness AI who will replace people who don't. And to that extent, we need to really be in and find ways of using some of these. And but I think it goes back to also really keeping it employee focused, because our topic was around how do we build that culture of innovation. really asking how we can help employees do their own jobs better, and then listening to that. A lot of the engagement surveys ask these questions. Do we really
Yeah.
listen? Do we really transfer that knowledge? And do we really implement? I think it'll come to that, really building that.
Great thoughts, everyone. So we are inching close to the wrap up of the session and the discussion. A quick rapid fire, just with one question. Your thoughts or quick advice to our listeners and audience of what is it that they can start doing at their end differently for building the culture of innovation for people and the organizations that they're working in. I'll call out names here. We'll start with Monique.
Okay, just unmuting myself. All right. So I think for us, as a start, what we can do is very simply as a leader, don't be the roadblock. Yeah. So I think number one is really for us to set an example to ourselves to embrace technology, right? To help with the innovation. And as a catalyst, as also an enabler. It's inevitable. Technology innovation goes hand in hand, and it's inevitable as well. Technology is going to be part of our day-to-day work, right? So we ourselves, number one, we need to be the role model. We need to use technology as part of our day-to-day. And number two, do not be the roadblock. For the organization, for the people. As much as we love the people, right? We also have to let go and say that there are certain things that's happening and evolving. Yeah, I think HR sometimes can be very late in terms of adopting certain things. I think we should not be the roadblock, and we should be open to embrace the innovation and the changes. And I think number three is also do not forget that we HR are the custodian of all the people in the organization. We should not forget, at the end of the day, we are the custodian of all the HR, and we should not forget the people element in the innovation piece.
Okay, quick one, Sondri, just one sentence, quick.
Yeah. What are you doing as leaders so that it is really safe for you to pull the cord or press the red button so people can really create that space? And what can you do to make intelligent failures? And this is of Amy Edmondson's book on what is the right kind of wrong. How can you create an opportunity for intelligent failures within your organization?
Marianne, quick one.
Quick one would be close your say-do gap. Take a good look
Awesome.
at what you're telling people and then evaluate how you actually deliver on that and close that gap.
Wayne, quick one.
I would follow up what someone said about Amy Edmondson. She has a quote here: "Leaders, your number one job is to make failure discussable."
There you go.
Awesome.
And not
And
punishment.
Shipran,
That's a
Awesome.
mindset that I would recommend.
Chip,
Brilliant. And I've made some notes with 3 different words. One is forget everything you know about the future and dream something completely different. As
Love
an
it.
HR leader, you need that potential of the future is nothing of what I'm expecting and hoping for. It's going to be slightly different than that. The second one is enable others. So foster innovation where you see it, even if it's small, and then reward those. And that's the element of how you build that culture. Reward any single step that you see of people taking an additional step towards innovation, and build that around you. I can't be innovative for an organization of 30,000 people. I need everyone to actually throw all of those ideas up and start building them.
awesome. Thank you. This brings us to the end of a wonderful panel discussion in our September series. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And you can continue your conversations with the panelists on LinkedIn. Thank
Awesome.
you. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Great
Good care.
conversation on the chat. Great. Thank you.